Have you ever had that feeling like you were born in a world you don't know anything about? A world that your family and everyone else seems to know everything about, and they speak of it like it's still there. But when you go outside, you see a world that is so unrecognizable from the world that they describe in those stories. You live in that unrecognizable world. And not only do you live in that world, it's tied to you in a way that you can never truly understand. Yeah, that feeling. Now take that feeling and add some flutes and flugelhorns. That's Wavetale. What's up, Chims? Welcome back to a brand new episode of Clearing Out My Backlog, the show where I take a random title from my library of almost 2,000 games, beat it, try to complete it, and come online and blab about it. And today we're talking about the indie game that felt like an oceanic experience, Wavetale. Tunes, I'm not gonna lie to you, Wavetale fucked me up. That intro alone took me like 3 or 4 drafts to really put my thoughts into words, especially when it comes to this title. Because by no means do I think this game is mechanically stellar, nor do I think the core gameplay loop is so exciting that it always leaves you wanting more. Not at all, it's nothing like that. There is a magnetic element to it that keeps you invested in the journey that this game takes you on, but the gameplay isn't the vessel for that. The actual thing that keeps you with Wavetale are the characters, the aesthetic, the music, the story. Hey, before you get your boxes in a bunch, remember that you clicked on a video made by a guy whose first viral video ever was them talking about how Orin the Red is a satanic incest baby. All because of a note he read in a video game. You should be able to discern that gameplay isn't always going to be the main priority around here. I don't give a fuck about gameplay. I don't give a fuck. We gonna talk to him, right? Anyway, Wavetale puts you in the shoes of a young girl named Sigrid, who sails around a flooded world with her grandmother Doris. The two of them work as this weird hybrid of plumber and electrician, where they go from island to island cleaning up this black gunk known as gloom. The gloom is like death goo that leaked from the planet after some crazy cataclysmic event that completely envelops anything that is covered by it, and then it drowns it or renders it completely obscured and inaccessible to the rest of the world. Now, the event that caused the gloom to seep out from the ocean bed happened pretty recently in the universe of the game, and a bunch of characters are often reminiscing about life before this crazy event. They talk about loved ones that they lost in the flood, the memories of parks and plazas bustling with life, or sometimes it's something as personal as missing the taste of an apple. You're able to feel the absence of everything the inhabitants of this world are talking about because you, as Sigrid, were raised in this world filled with those who yearn for the past. And the game lets you sit with those feelings a bit before revealing to us that Doris lost her daughter Iris, who is Sigrid's mom, in that great flood. The only thing Siggy has to remind her of her mother is this melody that Iris used to sing to her when she was a baby and would have nightmares.
Deep breaths, my darling. Waves are crashing. We are still far from shore. Know that I've got you. It's what my mom used to sing to me when I woke up with nightmares.
The game makes it a point to show that this is a point of contention between Doris and Siggy, with Doris being so vehemently against Siggy being anything like her mother, and Siggy feeling isolated because she never got the chance to know her mom, and her grandmother doesn't tell her anything about her anyway. But what Doris does do and encourages Siggy to do as well is to focus all of their anger, confusion, all of their emotions on the work, on dealing with the gloom and trying to bring who they think caused the cataclysm to justice. One day, a wave of gloom crashes into them and Siggy wakes up stranded on a small island surrounded by gloom and water. A mysterious shadow emerges from the water and encourages Siggy to dip her feet into the ocean, only to discover that she can now walk on water with the help of the shadow. With Siggy's newfound ability to walk amongst the very waves that sunk everything around her, her and Doris search the vast pool of blue for answers to the problems that have been plaguing their life ever since that dreadful day. I do think the premise for this story is pretty good, and I say the setup is good as well because it establishes our characters and gives them a sense of direction, gives us a purpose to be interacting with gloom, gives us a reason to travel on the waves using the shadow's powers. I think it's all okay on paper. I think on paper it's pretty enjoyable. And I think that this game definitely does have some memorable moments. However, I feel as if there is a pacing issue. The game is only 5 hours long. And because of that, I feel like the player may get to some points in the story a lot sooner than they would expect. And by the time you're realizing what's happening in the overall scheme of the narrative, you're like, how did we get here this fast? Like, we're here already. We're talking about this. This was revealed this way. I do not think when the game gets to those moments that they are executed poorly. I think for what this game is trying to do with these characters, I think it's pretty good. But it just feels like you get there a bit too soon with a lot of moments. And by the time you finish the game scenario, and everything's wrapped up, despite the conclusion being satisfying, you're still kind of like really left with that feeling that you just did something very fast. I've seen 22-minute episodes of television shows whose self-contained episode plots feel a lot slower than this game. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but it is something that I did take note of after I sat down with my thoughts on the game for a bit. Anyway, so you know how I did a riff about me not really caring about gameplay earlier in the video? Of course you do, because you made that face when I talked about Warren the Red being a satanic incest baby. So that's not entirely true. The gameplay bit, not the incest baby part. Baldur's Gate 3 is a weird game. But essentially, I care more about gameplay in the context of, why are our characters doing this? Does it make sense for our characters to be doing these specific things at all? So I guess I care more in a game direction sense, and this is where I get the most divided on my opinion about Wavetale, because I do think there are some things done really well. The wave riding is good, the tides of the oceans feel great to navigate as you rise and fall with the waves. The atmosphere of the game almost feels serene at times, despite the narrative providing this gloomy and dramatic backdrop for the game's story, and I think that that's intentional. I think just how frustrated Siggy is with her grandmother's ways and the way everyone more or less tells her how to live her life, she needs those times traveling the waters with the shadow, alone, to really contemplate her thoughts. She's finally able to visit these other islands in the archipelago on her own accord and form her own thoughts about the world and the people in it. And she keeps all of this stuff in a little scrapbook, which is a place where she writes her thoughts down unapologetically. It's actually pretty interesting to see Sigrid's thoughts on things that she'll never truly have the ability to comprehend, like automobiles and trains, or how much she wonders how an orange tasted, or you'll get something more somber altogether. It has those coming of age / understanding the world elements that I really enjoy. And although the way the scrapbook is updated is via collectibles and conversation, it's still an aspect I enjoyed way more than the other gameplay stuff like combat and traversal. But while we're on it, the combat is stiff. If I'm being honest, it's a bit janky, but like in a way where the jank feels like it's supposed to come off as snappy, but it still feels jank. The enemies are all just the same sentient amalgamation of black goo that doesn't really offer much in terms of variety. You know, there's a normal one, an armored one on water that looks like Surskit doing blackface.
Whoa, is that blackface, dude?
No, this isn't blackface. I'm an actual demon.
And sometimes these big old mechanical serpents that look like oil rigs. Before I do wrap up this video, I do want to give a huge shout out to Joel Bill, the composer for Wavetale, because Jesus fucking Christ, dude, you nailed this OST. This soundtrack for this game has been on repeat in my house for a week and a half, and the sounds on this thing always manage to evoke some kind of emotional response from me. Freedom, sorrow, grief, it all felt like one big adventure sonically. Like every single mood one of these songs put me in had this keep going energy while also making me mourn the things I've lost, and it hits different. So huge shout out to Joel and his team of amazing musical artists for their work on this OST. Matter of fact, shout out to everyone who worked on this game, even the people who worked on the parts I don't like as much, because making a game is hard. So for the final product to still leave its impact on me, I think that's a sign that something good was done here. Something worth the time was made. All in all, I think Wavetale is kind of like its title. An interactive story with crests and troughs that keep going through this ebb and flow until it reaches shore. It does what it can to keep you above water for as long as it needs you to, which in this case is around 5 hours for the game's story content. Story is enjoyable, but the gameplay aspects such as the combat and platforming are pretty underwhelming. It doesn't take away that much from the game, to be honest, because by the time the credits rolled, I was left with a warm feeling in my chest. Because of that, I'm gonna give Wavetale a rating of I liked it.